chapter 7, text 14. This is austerity in the modes of nature. It goes all the way to the 19th verse. Deva dvija guru prajna pujanam shaucham arjavam brahmacharyam ahimsacha sharidam tapa uchyate. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the brahmanas, the spiritual masters, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Prabhupada says here, the Supreme Godhead here explains the different kinds of austerity and penance. First, he explains the austerities and penance practiced by the body. Okay, so the next verse is speech and then the mind. So one should offer or learn to offer respect to God or to the demigods, the perfect qualified brahmanas and the spiritual master and superiors like father, mother, or any person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. So, Deva, Dvija, Guru, Prajna, Pujanam, Shaucham, Arjavam. So you should be offering puja to the Deva, to Dvija, to Guru, and Prajna. And this is austerity of the body, which is really at the heart of culture, or Vedic culture, which is culture. And there's kind of like three different individuals. Well, these are four, obviously. 4 or 5 individuals you should always respect. But especially you have the guru, the father, and the mother. Right? In Vedic culture, this is very strongly emphasized. The children are meant to be very, very respectful to their parents. And also to guru. And that means your teachers at school, right? So it's not just like a kid that only has his parents. He has his parents and his teachers. And they're supposed to work cooperatively to raise the children. And then here, of course, you have Dvija, and Prabhupada says the perfect qualified brahmanas, meaning individuals who are actually Dvijas, not just, persons born in such families. And then Deva means, of course, God or the demigods, but, we can understand, of course, the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Krishna to spiritual personalities, to your guru, and to your parents. You should always be offering them respect. Shaucham, cleanliness. Arjavam is simplicity, straightforwardness. Brahmacharyam, celibacy. And then non-violence. So you should not be harming and killing living entities as you move throughout the world, right? So these are all austerities of the body. And this is in the mode of goodness. Let's take a look at text 15. Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat swadhyaya ya bhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. So one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students, but such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. So this is a kind of a subtle point. But first of all, anudvega karam vakyam. So austerity of speech means don't cause people disturbances. Don't speak in such a way that you upset people, right? Visit YouTube and you'll see the kindest, gentlest speech imaginable in the comment section. Everyone, especially if you look at some political news or something like that, you'll see that everyone is kind and gentle to each other, always respectful, always cautious, always truthful. No? No, it's like a mudslinging contest where, you have like on Twitter, what is it, like 144 characters or something? In those 144 characters, you have to try to harm the person as much as possible with your words, right? So this is not austerity of speech. Of course, it's not necessarily advocating, like take away people's freedom of speech or something like that. But as a culture, like in a cultured way, you should try not to upset people. Now, of course, you can speak the truth. But as it's being said here, especially for a teacher, in other words, do you see how there's like a balance here? Anudvega karam vakyam. You're not supposed to disturb people with your speech, but satyam. You have to speak the truth. So it's not always easy to get those two in a balance, right? You have to speak the truth, but you have to do it in a way which doesn't disturb people. Priyahitam, right? And it has to be very pleasing and beneficial to people. So you have to be speaking in a way that you're actually helping people and assisting them, and you're sort of like being nice to them, essentially, and speaking in a way that's beneficial to them and also pleasing to them. This is austerity of speech. You have to be nice, and you have to speak in a way that people are happy with you. and you have to, but you also have to tell the truth. So Prabhupada here giving an example that the teacher may sometimes have to speak the truth, but he should not do that to those who are not his students. So, I mean, there are exemptions to this. A teacher can disturb the mind of his disciple, like a guru can disturb the mind of the disciple, but not to someone who's not his disciple. Okay? So you'll see, sometimes guru can be very heavy. You may have experienced, like sometimes when we see, there's certain gurus have a very strong mood, and then when they come, their disciples are running around like terrified. They don't want to make any mistake, and that's good for the disciple. The disciple means discipline, and the spiritual master is disciplining them and teaching them, right? And so, so that's okay. But somebody who's not a disciple, you shouldn't do that. Okay. Prabhupada says here, the process of speaking in spiritual circles to say something upheld by the scriptures, one should at once quote from the scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. So this is the Svadhyaya Bhyasanam Chaiva. So you should be able to, in other words, you should be practiced in Svadhyaya, or Vedic study. Okay? This means that, when you're speaking, you'll automatically speak in the terms of the scripture. Like the more that you study the Shastra, the more that when you speak, you'll speak in alliance with the Shastra. Yeah? It's like, you have somebody that's always studying or always hearing lectures and stuff, then when they speak, it's Krishna conscious. Yeah? And they're speaking about what they heard in that lecture, or I shouldn't be giving myself as an example, I'm a bad example, but when, say, I'm listening to some lectures, while I'm doing service or something like that, then if I have to give Bhagavatam class, it's like that will really inspire what I'm going to say, Like I listened to some lecture by my Guru Maharaj, and then it's like, okay, this would be a good point for this, and this is, you know what I mean? It's like when you study, automatically you speak in accordance with spiritual authority, and especially quoting verses then is like the most authoritative thing. All right, so that's austerity of speech. So you should speak Krishna Katha. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There's a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. So studying the Shastra is penance of speech. You're doing it right now. Yeah? Right now you're practicing penance of speech, because then what you hear, you're going to speak according to that. All right, any questions about this? Let's take a look at text 16. This is mind in the mode of goodness, or austerity of the mind. Mana prasada saumyatvam maunam atma vanigraha bhava sangshuddhid ityetat tapo manasam uchate. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport: to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity and thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness, and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's mind is to become Krishna conscious. So this mana prasada, to be satisfied, in atma vanignaha, to control the mind, really means to take it away from sense gratification and ultimately put it on to Krishna. To purify one's mind is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind may be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there's no possibility of the mind becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One could take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. All right. So, that's the idea, is you basically take the mind away from sense gratification and put it onto Krishna, and that's really the essence of controlling the mind. Any questions about this? All right, let's take a look at text 17. Shraddhaya padayai taptam tapastatri vidham nadai apalakankshabhid yuktai sattvakam parichakshate. The threefold austerities performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. So, Krishna has explained austerity of body, mind, and words, and you'll find this is a typical category within the Vedic literature, body, mind, and words. Kamana manasa gida, right? Your body, meaning your activities, your mind, and your words. These things are all, there are three things which have to be controlled. It's like the rod of the sannyasi. There's a tridanda, it has 3 sticks. It means that body, mind, and words are offered to Krishna. And so this ultimately offering it to Krishna is transcendental, but just in terms of the mode of goodness, you see that this is like the general pattern of the mode of goodness is free from the desire from the fruits of the results. Right? We heard about this in the 14th chapter. Mode of goodness is essentially detached. You're just doing your work as a duty. You're not trying to get anything selfish out of it. And even while you're doing it, you're totally in knowledge. You're doing it with transcendental knowledge. You're not the body, etc. So that's the mode of goodness. And then mode of passion is what?
You're doing things like in a very active way.
Good, very active, very intense, intensely striving. What else?
Sense gratification?
Yes, your single-pointed goal is you want sense gratification. Anything else?
Just for my benefit, just for me.
Yes, it's selfish. It's also miserable, right? It eventually leads to misery. But yeah, intense, hard work, karma, performed for sense gratification. What about the mode of ignorance? What are some characteristics of the mode of ignorance?
Lazy.
Mm-hmm. Just look at me and just describe whatever you think. Just say what you think. Lazy?
Like unclean.
Unclean, thank you, yes. Anything else?
No God, maybe.
No God, yes. Atheistic, perfect. That's me. Anything else? Any other observations? It's funny. You guys are looking. You guys are funny. So yeah, basically you're totally an illusion, and you're totally an illusion, even to the extent of madness. What to speak of sleep, and it's indolence. It's lack of action completely. Just the desire to disintegrate one's consciousness into nothing and forget reality. All right, so you'll see these same patterns sort of replicated here. So someone who performs austerity in the mode of goodness, it's free from the desire for material benefit. And it has transcendental faith, meaning this is similar to having transcendental knowledge, right? Because the mode of goodness, you're performing your activities with knowledge. And it gives rise to knowledge. Okay, let's take a look at text 18. Satkara mana pujartam tapodambhena chaivayat kriyate tad iha proktam rajasam chalam adruvam. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. All right, so you have the different austerities that one may perform. Satkara mana pujartam. So if your purpose is you want respect, honor, and puja, you want people to worship you, then that's in the mode of passion. It could, there's all sorts of different austerities we perform, but imagine when you basically put off the enjoyment of fruits and you work very hard to develop something, like going to school, for example, like going to the university, you're trying to get a PhD or something like that, and you're really striving and struggling towards that goal. You have a desire you want to fulfill, and you're working hard and performing penance. You're doing things you don't want to do in order to gradually build up and achieve that, right? Or, for example, you're working at a company or something, and you're striving and you're struggling. You want to be the CEO or something like that. You're working for the next pay bracket. And so if your purpose in working very hard is for honor, respect, and worship, you want to be the big man, right? You want everyone to look at you and bow down and say, yes, he's actually great. He's greater than me, and pay you respect, then that's the mode of passion. So if you see that in yourself, that's rajasic conditioning, right? And we could even do that in devotional service, right? Like you're doing your service and you're thinking, yes, if I continue to do this, or say you're distributing books, every book you distribute, you're like, when they read my name tomorrow morning, they are going to just bow down, they'll all see this Jai Chaitanya and Bhrigupati. They're so proud, thinking they're the greatest book distributor, but just wait until they hear this book score, right? So that's the mode of passion. Whereas the mode of goodness is, how would you distribute books in the mode of goodness?
You don't care for the results.
Okay, very good. It's not necessarily for Krishna yet, this is just the mode of goodness. It's my job, I'm just out here doing what I'm supposed to do, I'm a devotee, I guess. I mean, not even really thinking that. You would just be thinking, this is my job, I got to just finish my work, And a lot of times people work in the mode of goodness, you can find yourself, say for example myself, I can find myself doing my service just in the mode of goodness. Like I'm not really thinking of Krishna or anything, like I'm trying to do a good job. Trying to make sure everything's done very nicely. Not really doing it for Krishna. I'm just trying to get my work done, and I'm just, I'm just focused on doing my job very nicely, and I do it just because I'm supposed to do it. I have to do it, and so I do it, and you feel very peaceful. You know what I mean? Afterwards, you're done. You feel like you accomplished something, right? So that's the mode of goodness. Now, what would it look like if you're doing it for Krishna, which is transcendental?
Constantly praying to Krishna.
Yes, please, Krishna, let this person take a book, Krishna, this is for your glory. I'm doing this for your pleasure, right? So that's the transcendental platform. What about the mode of ignorance? What would it look like?
You're just doing it for money.
Yeah, well, that would be the mode of passion more. You're not even doing it at all, right? You have like somebody coming and knocking on your door. Hey, Prabhu, the offering's supposed to be done. Or Prabhu, it's time to go distribute books. Where are you? You're not answering your phone. And you're just, you're finishing watching a movie or something like that. Like you're just basically spaced out, is the devotee colloquial term. So in the mode of passion, then it's not stable or permanent. Rajasam chalam adruvam. So the results that you achieve, or that penance that you're doing, in the mode of passion, that penance isn't going to be very steady. Someone in the mode of goodness, their penance, their hard work that they're doing, it's going to be very, or the suffering that they're taking upon for future gain, it's going to be very steady and stable. Like you just keep doing it. Like you look at a lot of senior devotees, the service that they do, they're doing it for 40 years and stuff. That's very sattvic. Someone in the mode of passion who's just driven by selfish desire, they can't really be steady. You may do it for some time, but then you got to take a break, or you got to change your situation, and then come back and try something else. Because it's like you're pushing for fruits, and if you don't get those fruits, then that's it. You move on to another attempt. You'll try in some other way to get those fruits. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. Persons in mode of passion arrange to be worshipped by subordinates and let them wash their feet and offer riches. Such arrangements artificially made by the performance of penances are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary and they can be continued for some time, but they're not permanent. Okay, let's take it. And also the results, the fruits that you gain, they're also temporary, those material fruits. And it's true, like the worship of people or the honor of people, the appreciation of people, it really is ultimately BS. Excuse my implied language. It doesn't really mean anything or matter, because the next week or the next month they'll be criticizing you, in other words, like the glorification and honor that you receive in the world, it's really empty. It doesn't really have any substance. And even if and sometimes you'll see, like, if people honor you and respect you, it's just sentimental, It doesn't really come from knowledge or anything like that. It's just a kind of like a, they're in some kind of illusion state of mind, and it's very sentimental and temporary. It's not really real. There was like conditioned souls in this material world offer each other honor and respect at different times, but really in this material world there is no true honor and respect. There is maybe towards your guru or towards, so like there's love and there's devotion, but in general, on the mode of passion level, when people are striving for material prestige and things like that, none of it's really real. It's all just very temporary. It just someone may honor you, and the next day someone will criticize you, and then they'll honor you again. It's just always going back and forth. So one shouldn't be attracted to that sort of thing. It's kind of foolish. So let's take a look at text 19. Buddha grahenat manoyat pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyot sadhanatam va tattamasam buddhaharatam. Penance performed out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of passion. So there are instances of foolish penance undertaken by demons like Hiranyakashipu. who performed austere penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Brahma for such things, but ultimately he was killed by the Supreme Personality. To undergo penance for something which is impossible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. So mudha, grahina, so some foolish endeavor, right? And basically you're going after something which you can never achieve. You know what I mean? Like you're really performing a lot of penance and austerity. You're trying to achieve something, but it's not something that you can achieve. And you're basically just wasting all your time and energy. That's in the mode of ignorance. Just like Hiranyakashipu, he was trying to become immortal. But that doesn't work. There's no such thing, right? So basically you're doing it out of illusion. Like that's the characteristic of the mode of ignorance, is you're in illusion, right? So your austerities you perform are also in illusion. Parayotsya dhanartanam. So you're trying to do it utsadhana artam, for the annihilation of others. You're trying to harm others. You're doing some austerity, but ultimately you're trying to destroy. So remember, the mode of goodness is the characteristic of maintenance within the world. It's that energy which keeps things remaining where they are and what they are. And the mode of passion is the element of creation, and the mode of ignorance is the element of destruction. So someone in the mode of goodness, you could see that their austerities stay where they are. They not only the fruits, but also the work they do, everything is very steady and stable. The mode of passion, it's like explosive energy, but then it wants to create something else, and then create something else, and then create something else. It doesn't maintain anything, right? And then the mode of ignorance is it wants to destroy. So the motivation of the mode of ignorance is you want to destroy. For example, devotional service under the different modes. In the mode of goodness, you just want liberation, or you want knowledge. And generally, it's not done necessarily out of pure devotion, but you're more or less detached from the fruits, you're peaceful, etc., you're steady. And then in the mode of passion, you want some honor, some respect, you want some material gain. Krishna, please give me this, please give me that. And then the mode of ignorance, you worship the Supreme Lord, and you want to destroy others. This is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, right? So in the 11th canto. So, you do your devotional service, and you're praying to God, please, Krishna, kill this enemy, and destroy this person, destroy the infidel, right? So whenever you see religions that are obsessed with destroying the non-practitioner, that is mode of ignorance right there. So you'll see the same type of thing here, austerity and penance. And you'll see this oftentimes, like in wartime, people perform tremendous austerities. They climb through mountains of mud and blood and bones, but for the purpose of just killing people, right? So this type of austerity, and also that which tortures the self, like these severe physical austerities we talked about yesterday. Any questions about this? Okay, let's take a look at text 20. Datavyam iti yaddanam diyate nupakadine deshakale chapatre cha taddanam satvakam smritam. Charity given out of duty without expectation of return at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person is considered to be in the mode of goodness. So this is charity in the modes for the next couple verses. So in the Vedic literature, charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. So you can give charity to anybody, really, but it's not recommended to just give it to normal people. There is, say, if you're looking towards the fruits, then whatever you just give to a normal person, you just get in your next life, you just get that back at the same amount. Give somebody $5, you'll find $5 on the ground, in your next life or whatever. But to a spiritual person, then it starts to multiply. Even if they're not even a Brahmin, they just say they're a Brahmin or they look like a Brahmin, then it's like 100 times, right? And then what to speak of great spiritual personalities, then you derive spiritual benefit. So, but basically, in the Vedic literature, the Grihastha, this is one of his major duties, as we mentioned previously, right? In the beginning of the last chapter. So, giving dana, giving charity, the Grihastha, he supports the brahmacharis, he supports the sannyasis, and the vanaprasthas too, perhaps. Right? So there's a sense in which the grihastha is really supporting everyone through charity. So charity is a very important part of Vedic culture. It's how most people are supported, because most people are engaged to some degree on the religious path. All right? So that's really where it's meant to go, towards people engaged in spiritual practice. There's no recommendation for giving charity indiscriminately. Spiritual perfection is always a consideration. Therefore, charity is recommended to be given at a place of pilgrimage, at a lunar or solar eclipses, or at the end of the month, or to a qualified Brahmin. or to a Vaishnava devotee or in temples. Such charities should be given without any consideration of return. Charity to the poor is sometimes given out of compassion, but if a poor man is not worth giving charity to, then there's no spiritual advancement. In other words, indiscriminate charity is not recommended in the Vedic literature. So around Los Angeles, there's thousands of people who are asking for your charity, right? If you just go to the store, every time you leave the store practically, there's people there begging for something. So you have to be very careful because you don't want to just give it indiscriminately. In many religions, they will advocate people to give charity to the poor and things like that, and it's very wonderful. We admire that. And we also can give charity to the poor, but we have to take into consideration what they're going to do with the money, right? Like you don't just, if you're going to give people money and they're going to just go buy meat, you can't facilitate that, right? Or if you give people water, they say they're thirsty and you give them money, they go buy beer or something like that. You can't facilitate that because then you become entangled within that sinful reaction and you're actually working towards their degradation. So indiscriminately means you have to discriminate as to who and how to give charity to. All right? As Prabhupada says here, you diete nupakarine, you're not looking for something in return. Sometimes people will give charity, say to the temple or to devotees, and they're thinking, what am I going to get out of this? Right? Have you ever done that? I mean, I've done that. You give charity to somebody or whatever, and somebody asks for a donation. It's like, can I have a donation? No. And you feel like Scrooge, right? No, don't touch my money. And then when you do give okay, fine, I'll give you $20. Here it is. And when you do give it, it's like, that took my $20. And you're like meditating on the money you gave them, and you're thinking, like what. I wish I could get something out of it. You want that money to do something for you. You know what I mean? I can't just let it go. It's got to work for me. I've got to make some money off of it, or I've got to get some glorification. There's got to be something. I have to get some fruit for it, right? What are you going to give me? At least you can give me a bag of sweets or something. Some Mahaprasad or something, right? So this is the tendency: is that when people give donations, you're thinking, I want to get something in return. But in a mode of goodness, you don't. You're just giving charity, and you're just giving it to Krishna, or giving it to the devotees, and you don't expect something for it. Okay? But when you're conditioned by the mode of passion, you always want something for your money. Yeah? And you're always very greedy for that money. So, desha kale cha patre cha taddanam. So, you have to consider time, place, and circumstance, ultimately. Let's look at text 21. Yatu pratyu pakarartham palam udishirva punaha diate cha pariklishtam taddanam rajasam smritam. But charity performed with the expectation of some return or with a desire for fruit of results in a grudging mood is said to be charity in the mode of passion, which is what I was just talking about. Charity is sometimes performed for elevation of the heavenly kingdom and sometimes with great trouble and with repentance afterwards. Why have I spent so much in this way? So you gave a $100 donation or a $1,000 donation and you're thinking, oh man, I'm never going to do that again. Why did I do that? It's a big waste of my money. I could have used it here and there and I could have done this, right? So that's charity in the mode of passion. So we can recognize these tendencies at least. Charity is also sometimes given under some obligation at the request of a superior. These kinds of charities are said to be in the mode of passion. So you're at work and your boss goes around, his son's in the Boy Scouts or something, and he goes around, collecting money for the Boy Scouts. And you'd be a fool not to give money to the Boy Scouts, right? There's an expectation there, because he's the boss, you want to please him, and therefore you give the donation. Does that make sense? All right. There are many charitable foundations which offer their gifts to institutions where sense gratification goes on. So, you're giving money to an organization that will feed chicken sandwiches to the poor or something. Or they're going to give free baseball tickets to kids. Or, you know what I mean? Like this, all these types of things. All right. Only charity in the mode of goodness is recommended. Let's take a look at text 22. Adesha kaleya danam atpatre bhyashcha diyate asakritam avajnatam tattamasam udaharatam. And charity performed in an impure place at an improper time to an unworthy person without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So, walking on Venice Beach and there's some guy some bloated, hairy man who's half naked, laying there smoking a giant blunt of marijuana, and then he's got a sign next to him that says need to stay high all the time, and you think it's hilarious, so you take all the money out of your pocket and you just throw it at him right in his face. So that's charity in the mode of ignorance. It's an improper person, improper time, improper place. You don't even take, because in the Vedic culture, time, place, and circumstance is very important. You have to give charity at the proper time as well. The time of day, the proper situation, the proper person. But here you don't care. You just give it to anybody, right? And to apatribhya, to an unworthy person, someone who's going to use it in a way which is destructive. And avajnatam, without proper attention. So say, for example, even if you give it to somebody who's proper, like there's a devotee or something and you're giving him a donation, but you're disrespectful and you're rude, that's also in the mode of ignorance. Here, take it, Fine, you want a donation? Take it. Rascals, asking me for money, right? What am I going to get out of this? Nothing. You're always taking my money. No, just shut up. Here, take it. And you throw the money at the devotee. So that's in the mode of ignorance, right? So that kind of negative attitude there. In fact, actually, it's mentioned in these South Indian Brahmins, Sri Vaishnavas. They have a saying that something like the Brahmin is a friend until the yajna's over. Like when you're performing yajnas for somebody or some kind of puja or something, then as soon as you're all friendly and everything, but as soon as it's done, then they want you out of their house. Get out of here. So it's very common that the as soon as somebody gets what they want from the exchange or whatever it is, then they're disrespectful. So contributions for indulgence and intoxication and gambling are not encouraged here. This sort of contribution is in the mode of ignorance. Such charity is not beneficial. Rather, sinful persons are encouraged. All right. So let's take a look at text 23, and we're moving towards the end of the chapter here. So this is also kind of like the end of the Bhagavad Gita for all intents and purposes. The 18th chapter is really it's almost like a summarization of the contents of the entire Gita. And so here Krishna more or less ends the text. And he ends it by talking about Om Tat Sat. So traditionally when you complete something, or especially, for example, studying the Vedas is always supposed to begin by chanting Om. And then it's supposed to end by chanting Om. And in between, whatever you talk about, then it makes it easier to remember. And we also have that tradition. I don't really follow it during this class. I should. But we chant Hare Krishna, or chant Jai Radha Madhava, right? And at the end of class, Prabhupada would always end saying Hare Krishna or something. So there's a way, we of course say all glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's kind of the same thing, right? But there's a beginning and an end, and then that way what you study in between is held, you remember it, and you understand it, is held in your mind. And so here Krishna ends the text with Om Tat Sat, and he talks about what that means, okay? Om Tat Sat iti nirdesho brahmanastri vidha smritaha brahmanastena vedascha yagyascha vihitapura. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas when chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So it has been explained that penance, sacrifice, charity, and foods are divided into three categories, the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But whether first class, second class, or third class, they are all conditioned, contaminated by the material modes of nature. When they are aimed at the Supreme Om Tat Sat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Eternal, they become means for spiritual elevation. In the scriptural injunctions, such an object is indicated. These three words, Om Tat Sat, particularly indicate the absolute truth. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the Vedic hymns, the word Om is always found. So the reason Krishna is talking about this also is because the idea is that when you do these different things, charity, food, etc., ultimately they should be offered to the Supreme. And you do that by including these sacred mantras, Om Tat Sat. Like when devotees take prasad and they say, here's the prasadam before you, and you go, Om Tat Sat, thanks a lot. So the idea is you're offering it to Krishna, right? All right. So each of these is referring to a specific aspect of the absolute truth. Let's jump ahead about halfway through the purport. It says, these three words, Om Tat Sat, are uttered in conjunction with the holy name of the Supreme Lord. For example, Om Tat Vishnu, so that's from the Rig Veda. Whenever a Vedic hymn or the holy name of the Supreme Lord is uttered, Om is added. This is the indication of Vedic literature. These three words are taken from the Vedic hymns. And here Prabhupada's giving examples. Om Itye Tad Brahmano Nedishtam Nama, that's from the Rig Veda, indicates the first goal. Then Tattvamasi, Chandogya Upanishad 687, indicates the second goal. And Sad Eva Saumya, Chandogya Upanishad 621, indicates the third goal. Combined, they become Om Tat Sat. I think that Chandogya Upanishad comes from the Yajurveda. So formerly, when Brahma, the first created living entities, performed sacrifices, he indicated by these three words the Supreme Personality guided. Therefore, the same principle has always been found by disciplic succession, so this hymn has great significance. All right, so these different mantras that Prabhupada quotes here, especially the Tattvamasi, Sad Eva Saumya, these are very famous verses in the Upanishads, and they're considered liberating utterances. Like Tattvamasi is for the Mayavadis, for the Advaita Vedantists, that is like their highest truth. You are that, right? So these are very famous examples, basically, where and so they're basically, it's Prabhupada showing that these mantras come from the Vedas, ultimately. Let's see. So Bhagavad Gita recommends, therefore, that any work done should be done for Om Tat Sat, or the Supreme Personality guided. When one performs penance, charity, and sacrifice with these three words, he's acting in Krishna consciousness. So they're pointing your activities, whatever they may be, towards the absolute truth. Let's take a look at text 24. Tasmad Om Ityudahritya Yajna Dana Tapakriyaha Pravartante Vidhanokta Satatam Brahmavadinam. Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performances of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations begin always with Om to attain the Supreme. All right, so Om Tad Vishnu Padamam Padam Sada Pashanti Sudayaha Diviva Chakshadatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyava Jagdavam Sasimindate Vishnu Yat Padamam Padam. So that's the actual verse, and it's basically saying you're offering obeisances to Vishnu, and you're offering obeisances to his lotus feet, right? Vishnu Yat Padamam Padam. It's like all the gods are paying reverence and everything. It's the highest supreme attainment. All right. So these mantras then are very important, like all these Vedic mantras, they have, the whole, Prabhupada's kind of like introducing us to a very mystical truth about them, is that they're directing us towards the absolute truth, and that's what their purpose is. Okay, so let's take a look at text 25. Tad ityane bhi sandhaya phalam yajnatapakriyaha dhanakriyascha vividha kriyante mokshakangshibihi. Without desiring fruit of results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. All right. Prabhupada says here, to be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gain. Acts should be performed for the ultimate gain of being transferred to the spiritual kingdom, back home, back to Godhead. All right. So, Prabhupada actually talks about tat in this purport here, so we'll just read the next one. Sadbhave sadubhave cha sad itye tat prayujjate prashaste karmani tata sach chabda parta yujjate yajne tapasi dane cha stiti sad itti chojjate karma chaiva tadartiyam sad ityeva bhriyate. The absolute truth is the objective of devotional service, and it is indicated by the word sat. The performer of such sacrifice is called sat, as are all the works of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which, true to their absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha. Okay. So you see that this Om is really, it's representing that it's you're undertaking the performance in accordance with the Shastra to attain the Supreme. And then Tat, it's kind of like you're indicating the objective, the objective being the absolute truth, and your purpose is to get free of material entanglement. Tat, it means that in Sanskrit, right? That's where the English word comes from ultimately. That comes from Tat. So it's kind of like you're pointing towards the absolute truth. Right? I mean, Om is really an invocation. It's ultimately the name of Krishna. Om, right? And you're basically you're establishing the authority of Krishna, the presence of Krishna, and the purpose of what you're doing is for Krishna. And you're also invoking the Vedic literatures because Om is the bij, or the seed of the Vedas. In fact, the Vedas ultimately come from the Om. Right? It's the different sadhus, they actually meditate and they hear within the Om, they hear the mantras and they bring them down. Therefore, when various mantras of the Vedas are chanted, there's a whole mantra you chant before you chant it, which mentions the meter that you're going to chant it, the chanda, all that stuff, and then it mentions the sage who actually brought the mantra out of the Om. Right? And also the Vedas also can come down from Brahma. That's another way, through Parampara, through the Prajapatis and stuff like that. But basically the Om is the sort of signifier that this is coming from the Supreme Lord, it's meant for the Supreme Lord. And then Tat is you're sort of pointing, and you're pointing at the absolute truth. And you're indicating that this is my goal. This is what I'm doing it for. Right? And then Sat means eternity. Sat means the transcendental platform of Brahman. As we heard in the 4th chapter, that you remember that verse that talked about, I think it's 424 or something, when you perform a sacrifice for Brahman, and then gradually you realize that everything is Brahman, right? And you see that the grains being offered are Brahman, the ghee is Brahman, the person doing the offering is Brahman, right? The fire is Brahman. It's like here you are doing this offering for Brahman, and as you're doing it, swaha, swaha, this is for Brahman, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this is Brahman too, and this is Brahman, and this is all, everything is Brahman, and that's the realization that comes from doing the offering for Brahman, right? Is like you realize that ultimately everything is Brahman, and you're Brahman, Krishna is Brahman, and that's the Sat platform, that's the platform of eternity. So almost like you have this Om, this invocation of the sacrifice on the authority of Krishna, coming from Krishna, for the purpose of Krishna. Tat is kind of like you're throwing the grains in the fire, you're directing them at the Supreme Lord. And then Sat is like the realization of Brahman that you have, right? That everything is ultimately Krishna, and everything is done to please Krishna. All right? So the word prashaste karmani, your prescribed duties, indicates that there are many activities prescribed in the Vedic literature which are purificatory processes, beginning from the time of conception up to the end of one's life. So the antyashti and the garbhodhan. Such purificatory processes are adopted for the ultimate liberation of the living entity, and all such activities is recommended that one should vibrate Om Tat Sat. So that's kind of like makes the whole sacrifice transcendental. Prabhupada's talking about samskars, right? So the words sadbhave and sadubhave indicate the transcendental situation. Acting on Krishna consciousness is called sattva, and one who is fully conscious of the activities of Krishna consciousness is called a sadhu. Okay, so sattva, tva means like having the quality of, right? The suffix tva means like, you possess this, or you have that character, that nature. So sattva, which is the mode of goodness, is another name for that, is sattva, means you have the quality of sat. Right? It's that quality of Brahman or eternity is actually manifesting in something. That's sattvic. Then we add an I on it, and it's kind of like that's the English. So we do that with a lot of Sanskrit words like Vedic. It's not actually a Vedic word. We take the words and we anglify them. See, I just anglified another word. So that's what we do. So anyway, sattva means having the quality of sat. And then sadhu is somebody who's actually also sat. Hey sadhu, give me that sabji. right? Hand me that pakora, sadhu. So it means somebody who's actually sat. Somebody who has that realization of Brahman and who's immersed in Brahman, right? In the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.25, it is said that transcendental subject matter becomes clear in the association of the devotees. The words used are satam prasangat. Without good association, one cannot achieve transcendental knowledge. Okay, so prasangat. So it is satam prasangat. So the sat is coming from the sangha. Right? That's kind of what that Sanskrit is saying. So like from the sangha, you get the sat. All right? When initiating a person or offering the sacred thread, one vibrates the words Om Tat Sat. Similarly, in all kinds of performances of yajna, the object is the supreme Om Tat Sat. Maharaj didn't say Om Tat Sat to me, He gave me the thread, Om Tat Sat. Dig it. So anyway, the word tadartiyam further means offering service to anything which represents the Supreme. Okay, so, for that, it means like for that purpose. So including such service as cooking and helping in the Lord's temple, or any other kind of work for broadcasting the glories of the Lord. Okay, so this is an example then of tad. That tad artiyam, which is also from another verse, I can't remember the verse, like a famous verse, might even be from the Bhagavatam. So tad artiyam means like for the artha, you're doing it, the reason you're doing it is tad, which means, you're pointing towards Krishna, right? All right. So these supreme words, Om Tat Sat, are thus used in many ways to perfect all activities and make everything complete. So of course you should do it with the proper understanding of what it means. Om Tat Sat, right? It means like, ultimately you're invoking the Supreme Lord, everything's being done for the Supreme Lord, you're directing it to the Supreme Lord, and then realizing ultimately that everything is the Supreme Lord, including yourself, your part and parcel, everything is Brahman, right? All right, so let's take a look at text 28. Ashraddhaya hutam datam tapastaptam kritam chayat asad ityuchate partana chatat pretyano iha. Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pritha, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless, both in this life and the next. So anything done without the transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless. So Krishna is pretty strong on that, right? So if you're not doing things in this proper consciousness, then it is asat. So there's a clear distinction. Therefore, in this verse, it is declared that such activities are abominable. Everything should be done for the Supreme in Krishna consciousness. Without such faith and without proper guidance, there can never be any fruit. In all the Vedic scriptures, faith in the Supreme is advised. In the pursuit of all Vedic injunctions, the ultimate goal is the understanding of Krishna. No one can attain success without following this principle. Therefore, the best course is to work from the very beginning in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the way to make everything successful. All right. So in the last paragraph, Prabhupada kind of just summarizes some of the things that are mentioned in the chapter. All right, so here we are. Bum, bum, bum. We're in the final chapter, right? We've got about 10 minutes, so we might as well just get started. But look at that. We're already in the final chapter. You did it. Om Tat Sat. You did it, Prabhus. So you went all the way from the first verse all the way to the 18th. It didn't take us that long either. It took us, 5 months or something. So I guess that is kind of a long time, but... So this particular chapter is a summary of everything that we've kind of heard about. In the beginning, it talks about... Because remember, the first 6 chapters, what do the first 6 chapters emphasize? Anyone remember?
Karma Yoga?
Yes, very good. Hare Krishna. So, yes, Karma Yoga. You're going to move, how to move towards the Supreme while doing your duties in a detached state of consciousness, right? What is it? Karmanye vidikadastesham. And then in chapters 13 through 18, well, chapters actually 13 through 16, what do they discuss? Well, there's an emphasis on Bhakti Yoga, right? So anyway, and then you have in the latter chapters that we've just been through, the final 6 chapters, then you have an emphasis on Jnana Yoga, how to come to Krishna through knowledge. We just finished talking all about the 3 modes of material nature, the divine and the demoniac. And then chapter 13, there was all that technical stuff about, the Supreme Lord, the material nature, and the soul, right? So we've been through that, coming to Krishna through knowledge. So we'll see that at the beginning of this chapter, it begins by, again, starting to talk about karma done for Krishna, right? How to offer your varnashram position to Krishna. Then it moves on to talking about coming to Krishna through knowledge. It's sort of like, it's almost like for the beginning, the first 20 verses or so are talking about kind of reiterating the topics we've talked about. And then in 19 through 66, it's sort of a summary of the whole yoga ladder, the whole process that we go through. From Karmakand to Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga and then ultimately Bhakti Yoga. And then in text 66, it kind of ends at the very top of that yoga ladder with those very famous verses, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. And then finally in the end, there's kind of like a some blessings and things which are given, like the benefit of preaching Krishna consciousness or teaching Bhagavad Gita, and some final words about Krishna and Arjuna. Okay? So let's take a look at text 1. Arjuna vacha sanyasyasya mahabaho tattvam ikshami veditum tagasya cha rishikesha pritakesha nasudana. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, Tyag, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses. So Prabhupada says here, actually the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. And every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses the devotional service unto the Supreme Personality. It is the ultimate goal of life. The same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. All right. So Prabhupada then mentions here, he divides the Bhagavad Gita into 6 portions, like we just talked about. And he basically emphasizes that the purpose of them all is devotional service. And then he mentions how the Om Tat Sat indicates Vishnu. All right, so let's go ahead and just take a look at text 2. Sri Bhagavana Vacha Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam Sanyasam Kavayo Viduhu Sarva Karma Palatyagam Prahustagam Vichakshanaha. Swami Personality said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas, and the giving up of the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation or tyaga. Okay, so basically the difference is that, Arjuna is asking what's sannyas and what is tyag. And Krishna answers that sannyas is when you give up all activities, all karma based on sense gratification. And tyag is when you give up the enjoying spirit. Right? And Krishna has been, which one has Krishna been emphasizing throughout the whole Bhagavad Gita?
Sannyas.
No? I guess that only leaves one more. So tyag, right? He's been emphasizing being detached from the fruits, yeah? It's not so much important what position you're in, whether you're a housewife or whether you're a preacher or whatever. What matters is that you do whatever you're going to do for Krishna, right? That's tyag. Whereas sannyas is you actually give up all the activities that are sort of centered on sense gratification in life, like having a family, having children, having a house, right? The sannyasi lights no fire. The cooking for oneself, for one's own enjoyment. Basically all the things in the world that are activities that ultimately are based on the quest for material happiness, then the sannyasi is someone who doesn't do those things. He renounces those, okay? Whereas the tyagi is somebody who, whether they renounce those or whether they don't, or whether they're in the midst of them, they do them in a detached state of consciousness, okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at text 3. Tyajam dosha vad ityeke karma prahurmanisinaha yajna dana tapa karma nyatajam iti chapade. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruit of activity should be given up as faulty, yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So now Krishna raises a certain philosophical debate. That there's some people, that some philosophers say this and other ones say that. And he's going to kind of weigh in and give his opinion. Okay, so Krishna is solving an age-old long debate. Chajam doshavad ityeke. So some people are saying karma yajna. Some people are saying basically you should give up all activities as well. Anyway, how do you say this? Doshavat, as having dosha, or they're faulty, they're evil, right? So in other words, all material activities, all karma should be renounced, right? So there's one group of people that say everybody should take sannyas, everyone should just leave aside the material world. That's what's needed in self-realization, is just leave everything aside. And even sacrifices and different things mentioned in the Vedas, which are uplifting or purifying, you shouldn't even perform those. Just go to the forest, right? Just give it all up. Whereas other people are saying yajna, dana, tapa, and karma natyajam, right? You shouldn't give those up, right? There's certain things like your karma, your duties, your austerities, the charity you give, and the sacrifices you perform, all these things which kind of gradually elevate people through the Vedic system to self-realization, you shouldn't give those up. So which one's correct? Which one will Krishna say? Okay, let's look at text 4. Nishchayam, or actually, I'm sorry, let me look at the purport, because there's some important stuff here that Prabhupada wants to share with us. There are many activities in the Vedic literature which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain that animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give a new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So this is also found in other religions too. Is animal sacrifice good or bad? Text 4. Nishchayam shrume tatra tyage bharate sattama tyago hi purusha vyagra trividha samprakirtitaha. O best of the Bharatas, now hear my judgment about renunciation, or tyaga. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of 3 kinds. So the way Krishna is going to answer it is by talking about tyag in the modes of nature. So although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality Sri Krishna gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. Okay, so let's see, we have time. No, we'll just, let me take a look here. Yeah. Yeah, let's do one more. We've got a couple minutes. We'll do one more. Yajna dana tapa karma nyatyajam kadyam evatat yajna danam tapaschaiva pavanani madishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So I didn't want to leave you on a cliffhanger. So Krishna answers here that he takes the side of those who say not to give up yajna, dana, tapa, and karma. All right? There's some that are emphasizing that everyone should just renounce all of these things. And, just get all this stuff, all these sacrifices and charity and all this stuff, just walk off into the forest. Just leave it all behind. And Krishna says, no, don't. They have their purpose, right? And that here he says they purify even the great souls. So the purpose is they purify you. They elevate everyone. The yogi should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called the Vivaha Yajna. So this is a famous purport, actually. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha Yajna, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind so that it may become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this Vivaha Yajna should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. So Prabhupada is criticized because he didn't participate so much, but he would encourage his disciples to marry, right? And so his godbrothers would criticize him that you're a sannyasi, why are you doing this? Why are you encouraging your disciples to get married? And even, I think on some occasions, Prabhupada actually sat in on the sacrifice, or even in the beginning, he may have even performed the sacrifice himself. So, so the disciples or the godbrothers would criticize, look, you're a sannyasi, and here you are, like, going to a wedding, of your disciples. Like, how dare you? This is like bad, right? You're supposed to be a renunciate, but Prabhupada's not there for his sense gratification. You know what I mean? Prabhupada's there to encourage his disciples, and that's what's needed at that particular stage of life, right? That's what's healthy for them, and therefore Prabhupada is he's saying that this is their mentality, or people that don't understand this, they have that kind of sannyas mentality rather than the tyag mentality that Krishna is emphasizing. Okay? Sannyasi should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stage of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advance spiritual life. So it's a gradual process, as we mentioned yesterday. Everyone moves up at their own speed, from their own particular place. And much of the sort of finesse of Krishna consciousness is how do you find your place? Where do you belong? What's the comfortable situation for you? And really, Prabhupada kind of indicates here, it's wherever your mind is peaceful. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the varna or the ashrams, is that when you're in a particular ashram, your mind can be peaceful because you're kind of stuck. Like you're married and you've got this husband and you've got these kids and you've got all these responsibilities. It may seem like, oh, I wish I could just be free and not have all this stuff. But the reality is that actually having this stuff, it makes your mind peaceful because it's putting you in a certain path, right? That's what the varna, that's what the ashrams are really doing. Ashram means shelter, right? So it's kind of like putting you in a structured environment where then you belong in a certain place and you have a certain, you might say there's a certain interaction which is natural for you in that situation. It's almost like building a home for yourself. It's like a structure that you live in. So that's what the Grihastha ashram is. That's what the Brahmachari ashram is. It's a structure for your mind. And so then that allows your mind to be peaceful because you have a place in the world, you have a future in that place, right? You're building up towards something, and then therefore you feel happy, more or less, as happy as you can be. Okay? So that's the whole purpose. So if you're, for most people, then you have to encourage them to find those particular places and stages where they can be peaceful and happy while they make spiritual advancement. And that's what's needed. All right? Thank you very much. All glories Prabhupada.